the depths of space where starlight bends and galaxies whisper ancient secrets, there exists a boundary that few dare to cross. Here at the edge of the Corvian Empire's domain, darkness holds more than mystery. It holds warnings. Captain David Rains stood before the observation window of the Earth vessel Resolute, his weathered hands gripping the cold metal rail. 20 years of service had taught him to read the silence of space, and right now, that silence screamed danger. Behind him, Lieutenant Sofia Torres monitored the tactical display, her brown eyes reflecting the soft glow of holographic charts that painted the bridge in shades of blue and amber. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates of the Meridian's last transmission," Torres reported, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her shoulders. The Meridian had been a civilian transport carrying 53 colonists and their families. Now it was just another blip that had vanished from existence. "Slow to half impulse," Rains ordered, his gravelly voice cutting through the hum of the ship's systems. "Keep all sensors active. I want to know if a dust particle sneezes in this sector." The Resolute glided forward, its hull designed not for elegance but for survival. Every plate, every rivet served a purpose. Unlike the Empire's ships that announced their presence with grandeur, human vessels wore their scars openly. This was a ship built by people who understood that the universe owed them nothing. "Sir, I'm detecting debris," called out Ensign Marcus Webb from the science station, his young face pale in the monitor's glow. "Composition matches the Meridian's hull signature. There's also something else, energy readings consistent with weapon discharge." Rains felt his jaw tighten. Weapon discharge meant this wasn't an accident. Someone had deliberately attacked an unarmed transport. "Can you identify the weapon type?" Webb's fingers flew across his console. "Negative, sir. The signature doesn't match any known human or registered alien technology in our database, but the pattern suggests directed energy weapons, high yield." Before Rains could respond, the bridge lights shifted to red. Tactical alarms pierced the air. Torres's voice rose with urgency. "Multiple contacts incoming." 5 vessels, configuration unknown, approaching at high velocity. The main screen flickered to life, revealing 5 ships that seemed to slice through space itself. Their hulls were silver and gold, adorned with flowing patterns that caught and reflected light like liquid metal. They moved with an almost organic grace, yet their weapon ports gaped open like hungry mouths. "Shields up. All hands to battle stations," Rains commanded, his training overriding the spike of adrenaline. "Communications. Hail them on all frequencies." Lieutenant Javier Chen's hands danced across the communications array. "Broadcasting now, sir. Standard first contact protocols." The response came not in words but in action. The lead alien vessel released a pulse of crimson energy that streaked across the void. The Resolute shuddered as the blast struck their forward shields, sending cascade failures rippling through secondary systems. "Shields holding at 73%, Torres called out, already calculating firing solutions. "They're not interested in talking, Captain." Rains's mind raced. 5 against 1, and they still didn't know who these attackers were or why they'd opened fire. But one thing was crystal clear. These were the same bastards who had destroyed the Meridian. "Return fire, all forward batteries. Target their propulsion systems. I want answers, and dead ships don't talk." The Resolute's cannons roared to life, spitting tungsten rounds at relativistic speeds. The projectiles crossed the distance in seconds, slamming into the lead alien vessel's aft section. Explosions blossomed across its hull, and the ship veered off course, trailing atmosphere and debris. "Direct hit," Webb shouted, a brief smile crossing his face before professionalism reasserted itself. "Target's engines are damaged, they're falling back." But the other 4 ships weren't retreating. They split into 2 pairs, executing a pincer maneuver that would have been textbook perfect if it weren't so deadly. Energy beams lanced out from multiple angles, each one precisely aimed at the Resolute's weakest points. "Evasive pattern, Delta 7, Rains ordered, gripping his chair as the ship banked hard to starboard. The Resolute wasn't built for fancy flying, but Lieutenant Torres had trained for moments like this. She pushed the helm controls with practiced precision, threading the needle between incoming fire. One beam caught their port side, and the ship groaned in protest. Console displays flickered and sparked, shield integrity down to 42%. Torres reported through gritted teeth. "We can't take many more hits like that." Rains studied the tactical display, his mind working through scenarios at lightning speed. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but humans had an advantage that their attackers might not expect. Desperation refined into art. "Chen, Broadcast a distress signal. Maximum power, all frequencies. If there's anyone friendly within 100 light years, I want them to know we're here. Broadcasting now. Sir, Chen confirmed, his voice tight with concentration. Webb, what can you tell me about their shield patterns? Rains demanded. The ensign's eyes widened as he processed the data. Sir, their shields are rotating in a synchronized pattern like they're sharing the defensive load across all vessels. It's incredibly efficient, but if we could disrupt that synchronization, they'd all be vulnerable at once. Rains finished, a grim smile crossing his face. Torres, I need you to put us right in the middle of their formation. Webb, the moment we're in position, hit them with everything we've got on wide dispersal. Let's see how well their fancy shields handle chaos. Torres glanced back, her expression somewhere between admiration and disbelief. That's going to put us in everyone's crosshairs, Captain. I'm aware, Lieutenant. Do it anyway. The Resolute accelerated directly toward the center of the alien formation, defying every tactical principle in the manual. The enemy ships hesitated, clearly confused by what appeared to be a suicide run. That moment of confusion was all Rains needed. Now, Webb. The Resolute unleashed every weapon in its arsenal simultaneously. Missiles, railgun rounds, energy pulses, and electromagnetic charges erupted in all directions, creating a sphere of destruction with the human ship at its center. The alien vessel's synchronized shields flickered and failed, unable to compensate for attacks coming from impossible angles. 2 of the alien ships took critical damage, their hulls breaching as internal explosions tore them apart. The remaining pair broke formation, retreating at full burn. The Resolute had survived, battered but intact. As the adrenaline began to fade, Rains allowed himself a deep breath. They'd won this engagement, but the war had just begun. Whoever these aliens were, they'd just learned that humanity didn't die quietly, and somewhere in the wreckage around them lay answers about the Meridian, and perhaps something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Damage report, Rains ordered, his voice returning to its steady calm. Torres consulted her screens. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7 contained. Shield generators need 12 hours for full repairs. We lost 2-point defense turrets in the starboard missile bay. Casualties are light, medical report 6 injured, none critical. Rains nodded slowly. They'd been lucky. Scan the debris field. I want to know everything about who we just fought. And Chen, keep that distress signal running. Something tells me this encounter was just the opening move. The debris field told stories that Captain David Rains wished he couldn't read. Fragments of alien hull plating drifted past the Resolute's viewports, each piece bearing intricate markings that spoke of a civilization far older than humanity's tentative steps into the cosmos. Ensign Marcus Webb had been analyzing the wreckage for 3 hours, and what he'd discovered had turned the young officer's face pale. Captain, you need to see this, Webb said, transferring data to the main display. The screen filled with symbols and ship registry codes. These vessels belong to the Corvian Empire. According to our limited contact databases, they're one of the 3 dominant powers in this region of space. Their territory spans over 4,000 star systems. Rains felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. The Meridian hadn't just been attacked by pirates or rogue elements. They'd been destroyed by an empire that could crush Earth without breaking stride. Why would they attack a civilian transport? We've had no contact with them, no territorial disputes, nothing. That's not all, sir, Webb continued, his voice dropping. I've been analyzing the weapon signatures from the attack on the Meridian. The energy patterns match perfectly with what we just experienced. But there's something else. He pulled up a second data stream. I've detected similar weapon signatures at 17 other locations across this sector. All human vessels, all destroyed within the last 6 months. Sophia Torres looked up from her console, her eyes hardening. They're hunting us. This wasn't random. They're systematically eliminating every human ship that crosses their border. Before Rains could respond, Lieutenant Javier Chen's console erupted with urgent beeping. Sir, receiving a transmission. It's not on any standard frequency. The signal is incredibly sophisticated, using quantum entanglement protocols that shouldn't even be possible with our current technology. Put it through, Rains ordered, instinctively straightening his uniform. The screen flickered and a face appeared that made everyone on the bridge fall silent. The alien was humanoid but distinctly other. Her skin held a faint luminescence like moonlight on water, and her eyes were a deep violet that seemed to hold depths no human gaze could match. She wore a uniform of deep crimson trimmed with silver, and her expression carried the weight of authority earned through centuries of command. "I am High Commander Vashti of the Corvian Imperial Fleet," she said, her voice carrying a musical quality that the translation software struggled to convey. "You have destroyed 5 patrol vessels under my jurisdiction. Surrender immediately and your crew will be granted the mercy of a swift execution. Resist and I will ensure your deaths span years." Rains stepped forward, his voice calm despite the threat. "This is Captain David Rains of the Earth Federation vessel Resolute. Your patrol vessels fired on us without provocation. We acted in self-defense. Furthermore, we have evidence that Corvian ships have been attacking unarmed human transports throughout this sector. I demand an explanation." Vashti's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those violet eyes. Interest perhaps, or recognition? Evidence? Humans possess the audacity to speak of evidence? Your species barely crawled from your gravity well before you began scattering your primitive vessels across the galaxy, like seeds in the wind. The Meridian, the transport you seek, violated Imperial space. It was dealt with according to our laws. The Meridian's navigation logs put them in neutral territory. Rains countered, his voice hardening. They had every right to be there. You murdered 53 civilians, including children. For the first time, Vashti's perfect composure cracked slightly. Her head tilted, and when she spoke again, there was something new in her voice. Not quite doubt, but perhaps the first hairline fracture in absolute certainty. "Children? Your data is incorrect, Captain. The vessel we intercepted carried military-grade weapons and refused all communication attempts. It fired upon our ships without warning." Rains felt the pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. "Someone lied to you. The Meridian was a civilian transport. We have passenger manifests, communication logs, everything. We can transmit them to you right now." "Captain, I wouldn't recommend that," Torres warned quietly. "We'd be giving them access to our systems." But Rains kept his eyes locked on Vashti's. In those violet depths, he saw something he recognized. The look of a soldier who'd been given orders that didn't sit right, who'd followed them anyway because duty demanded it, and who now wondered if duty had led them astray. "Commander, I'm sending you our complete mission logs, unencrypted. If I'm lying, you'll know, and you can destroy us with a clear conscience. But if I'm telling the truth, then someone in your empire is playing a game that's going to start a war neither of our people can afford." The bridge fell silent. Torres's hand hovered over the weapons console, ready to respond if this gamble backfired. Webb held his breath, his fingers frozen over his station. Chen watched the data transfer protocols with the intensity of a man watching his entire world balance on a knife's edge. Vashti studied Rains for a long moment, then gestured to someone off-screen. "Transmit your data. But know this, human, if this is deception, I will hunt you across the stars until the universe itself grows cold." Webb initiated the transfer, and for 37 seconds every piece of information about the Meridian flowed across space to the Corvian vessel. Passenger lists, navigation logs, final transmissions, even personal messages from families waiting for loved ones who would never arrive. The raw, undeniable truth of 53 lives snuffed out. When Vashti's face returned to the screen, the change was subtle but profound. The absolute certainty had been replaced by something far more dangerous: questions. This data suggests significant discrepancies with our intelligence reports. The vessel we engaged was reported as a military threat. Who reported it? Rains pressed, sensing an opening. Who gave you the order to attack? Vashti's jaw tightened. That information is classified Imperial security protocol. However, Captain Rains, I find myself in an unusual position. If your data is accurate, then someone within my own command structure has provided false intelligence that resulted in the destruction of a civilian vessel. This is a serious accusation that demands investigation. While you investigate, more of my people are dying, Rains said, his voice rough with emotion he no longer tried to hide. Webb found evidence of 17 other attacks, 17 ships full of people just trying to make a life among the stars. Every day you delay is another day that whoever is doing this has to cover their tracks. Something shifted in the space between them, a fragile understanding born from shared purpose. Vashti straightened, and when she spoke it was with the voice of someone making a decision that could end her career or start a revolution. I cannot promise you alliance, Captain Rains, but I can promise you truth. Remain at these coordinates. I am summoning someone who has the authority to answer your questions and mine. His name is Executor Thane, and he commands this entire sector. And if Executor Thane is the one behind the attacks, Torres interjected. Vashti's smile was sharp as a blade. Then we will both have a very interesting problem, won't we? The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Resolute in heavy silence. Rains turned to his crew, seeing his own doubts reflected in their faces. They'd just bet everything on the word of an alien commander who'd admitted she'd destroyed human ships. But sometimes the only way forward was through trust, no matter how terrifying that leap might be. All hands maintain battle readiness, Rains ordered, but hold fire unless directly threatened. Torres, I want every sensor we have pointed at that Corvian ship. The moment they power weapons, we jump to FTL and get the hell out of here. Aye, Captain, Torres responded, though her expression said she'd already been planning exactly that. Webb looked up from his console, his young face troubled. Sir, do you really think Commander Vashti will help us? Rains stared at the empty view screen where the alien commander's face had been moments before. I think she's a soldier who just discovered she might have been lied to. And there's nothing more dangerous in the universe than someone who realizes they've been used. He paused, then added quietly, except perhaps someone who decides to do something about it. The hours that followed were perhaps the longest David Rains had ever experienced in his 2 decades of service. The Resolute hung in space like a held breath while 3 light minutes away, the Corvian vessel remained equally still. 2 ships, 2 species, both waiting for answers that could reshape their understanding of the galaxy. Sophia Torres had moved through the ship during the wait, checking on the crew, ensuring that fear hadn't taken root in the hearts of men and women who'd signed up to explore, not to fight. When she returned to the bridge, she brought with her a thermos of coffee that had been passed from hand to hand. A simple ritual that reminded them all they were human, vulnerable and alive. The crew is holding steady, Captain, she reported, pouring a cup and handing it to Rains. Engineer Rodriguez managed to get the starboard missile bay back online. We're not exactly combat ready, but we can bite if we need to. Rains accepted the coffee gratefully, letting the warmth seep into his hands. Outside the viewport, stars burned with an indifference that was almost comforting. The universe didn't care about politics or lies or the small dramas of beings who measured their lives in decades rather than eons. It simply was, and there was a strange peace in that truth. You know, Rains said quietly, my daughter is 7 years old. Back on Earth, she draws pictures of spaceships and alien friends, imagining a universe full of wonders and friendship. He took a sip of coffee, his eyes distant. I left home to help build that universe for her. Instead, I'm sitting here wondering if I've just started a war that will burn across 1,000 worlds. Torres sat down beside him, something she rarely did on duty, but this moment felt outside the normal boundaries of protocol. You did what was right, Captain. Those 53 people on the Meridian deserved someone to stand for them. Their families deserve to know the truth. That little girl of yours is going to grow up knowing her father stood for something that mattered. Marcus Webb, who'd been quietly listening, spoke up from his station. My brother died on the colony ship Horizon 3 years ago. They told us it was a reactor failure, an accident. But the Horizon's last position was in this same sector. His voice cracked slightly, revealing the young man beneath the uniform. If there's even a chance that someone deliberately caused these deaths, if there's a chance for justice, then what we're doing here matters. It has to matter. Before Rains could respond, Chen's console lit up like a fireworks display. Sir, massive energy signature incoming. It's huge, at least 3 times the size of any ship in our database. The view screen automatically shifted to show the new arrival, and every person on the bridge felt their breath catch. The ship that materialized from faster-than-light travel was a Leviathan, a vessel so vast that it seemed to bend the starlight around it. Its hull was the color of deep space inlaid with veins of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. This was power made manifest, a reminder that humanity was still very much the newcomers in a galaxy that held wonders and terrors beyond imagining. That's the eternal mandate, Webb breathed, his fingers flying across his console. Flagship of the Corvian 7th Fleet. It's commanded by Executor Thane himself. Captain, that ship could reduce us to atoms without even slowing down. Then let's hope diplomacy works better than firepower today, Rains said, straightening his uniform and steeling himself for what came next. The communication that came through was different from Vashti's earlier transmission. This time the screen showed a chamber that seemed carved from crystal, with light refracted through every surface in patterns that suggested meaning beyond human comprehension. At the center stood a figure who radiated authority like a physical force. Executor Thane was tall even by Corvian standards, his luminescent skin marked with patterns that denoted rank and achievement earned over centuries. His eyes were ancient, holding the weight of decisions that had shaped the fate of entire civilizations. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that resonated in the bones of every human on the bridge. Captain David Rains, I am Executor Thane. High Commander Vashti has presented me with information that, if accurate, suggests a corruption within my own command structure. He paused, and something in his expression softened almost imperceptibly. Before we proceed, I wish to understand something about your species. You knew you were outmatched when you transmitted your data to Commander Vashti. You had no guarantee of mercy, no assurance of safety, yet you chose truth over survival. Why? Rains felt the weight of the moment, understanding that his answer would ripple far beyond this conversation. He thought of his daughter's drawings, of Webb's lost brother, of Torres's steady loyalty, of 53 lives that had been erased from the universe. When he spoke, his voice carried the conviction of someone who had found their true north in the chaos. Because truth is the only foundation worth building on, Executor. My people are new to the stars and we've made plenty of mistakes along the way, but we've learned that lies, no matter how comfortable, always collapse eventually. When they do, they bury everyone beneath them. I'd rather stand on solid ground with my enemies than build false peace on quicksand. For a long moment, Thane simply studied him, and Rains had the unsettling feeling of being seen not just as a human, but as a person with all the complexity that implied. Then something remarkable happened. The Executor's stern expression shifted into something that might have been respect. Your species has wisdom beyond your years in the cosmos, Captain. I have reviewed the data you provided. I have also conducted my own investigation into the incidents in this sector. What I have discovered shames my empire. Thane gestured, and the screen split to show files, communication logs, and records that painted a damning picture. A faction within my own government has been orchestrating these attacks, falsifying reports to justify them. They seek to provoke a conflict with your Federation, believing that a small war will unite the Empire and strengthen their political position. The revelation hung in the air like a thunderclap. Torres's hand tightened on her console. Webb looked like he might be sick. Chen simply stared, processing the implications of what they'd just learned. You're telling us that your own people have been murdering humans to start a war? Rains said, his voice dangerously quiet. How many? How many ships, how many lives? 23 vessels over the past 8 months, Thane replied, and the shame in his voice was unmistakable. 617 of your people, men, women, and yes, children. Each death a stain upon the honor of the Empire I have served for 400 years. The number hit like a physical blow. 617. Each one someone's child, parent, friend, lover. Each one a universe of experiences and dreams ended in the cold void of space. Rains felt rage building in his chest, hot and righteous, but he forced it down. Anger was easy. Justice was harder. What happens now? He asked, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. Thane's expression hardened into something carved from diamond. Now I do what should have been done the moment the first false report crossed my desk. The conspirators will be arrested and tried according to Imperial law. Your Federation will be provided with complete records of every incident, every order, every communication, and I will personally ensure that reparations are made to the families of those lost. And Commander Vashti? Rains asked, remembering the Corvian officer who'd been brave enough to question her orders.